myself.
Do is shoot this down.
What a wonderful world.
What's up? Welcome back. I have just recently discovered what these invisible builds are in Fortnite. I might be a bit behind, I might be a bit late to the trend, but I have just discovered what they are today. And I also wanted to mess around again with my macro. If you haven't seen my previous video, it kind of blew up, which was insane. Yesterday it passed over 500,000 views, which is absolutely mind-blowing. So we're making a little sequel to that video, but in this video we're going to be making builds invisible using a macro. Popping in quick for a friendly reminder, please don't forget, if you do find yourself enjoying this video, drop a like on the video. It helps out the channel a ton. And if you enjoy this content and you think you'd like to see more in the future, feel free to click that subscribe button. I've just passed 10,000 subscribers, which is nuts. Thank you guys so much, and on with the rest of the video. So here we are in Fortnite. I'm pretty sure that just using macros in your own personal creative lobby doesn't do anything. I'm not going to be playing against any other players. I'm not in any public matches. I'm just messing around in my own creative world. And that's what I did in my other video with over 500,000 views as well. And my account is not banned, so I think we're good to go. If you didn't see that video, my macro is going to be on my Corsair M65 gaming mouse. Basically, I just mapped it to this little sniper button on the side. I'm not gonna go in depth and show you guys how to use it, but basically if I hold this button down, it'll macro and do whatever. However, this one seems a little fast. I don't think I added enough of a delay. I just changed my delay speed and now it looks a lot better. I had it higher earlier because I was on higher ping, but now I can have my delay speed a little lower and it'll still work just as well. So now I'm able to just hold this down and it's going to continue editing this using the macro. It's a little crazy. It's definitely unfair. In my other video using the macro, I learned how to do a couple of double edits. I also learned how to do some triple edits. Keep in mind, I'm not very good at mouse and keyboard. And then of course we just did some of the normal macroing moves that she can do. Basically what I learned today is how to make builds go completely invisible. There was a thing called floating builds like 8 or 9 months ago within Fortnite. 8 or 9 months ago, if you edited fast enough, you could disconnect these two and continue editing that build, but they have since patched that. So now no matter how fast you edit and reset these two squares, no matter what, it's always going to break off. So within the last month, there's been a new method of floating builds that's come out, and today we're going to attempt to make builds float or make builds invisible. Mind you, if you've never watched any of my videos, I don't actually play mouse and keyboard. I mainly play controller, and that's why if it looks like I'm not very good on mouse and keyboard, it's because I'm not. But I don't think there's a method for macroing on the controller, so we're gonna stick to our keyboard and mouse where we can do crazy stuff like this. But basically, making builds float or making builds invisible is actually pretty simple. All you have to do is place some metal, wait for it to fully build, and then what we're going to do is shoot this down, make it under 30 HP. Once it's under 30 HP, what you have to do is sit here and consistently edit this pretty quickly for 15 to 30 seconds. And then by the time you let go, it's just going to turn invisible. It sounds kind of weird. It doesn't really make sense when you first hear it, but let's see if we can do this first try just using our macro. But hopefully when we let go, our build's not invisible yet. That's the one bad thing about using a macro for this, is that it has to be very consistent. If you're messing up in the middle of it, then it's not going to work. So let's see if instead of just holding down our macro like this, let's see if we can instead click our macro and try to stay more consistent. Because clicking our macro does the same thing, it just edits it once. So if I just keep clicking this, every single click on my mouse button will set the macro off. However, it won't go as fast as if I was to hold it down. This way I can stay a little more consistent. I know that I'm not messing it up. And let's see if we can keep this going consistently for 15 to 30 seconds. Even using a macro to do this is a little bit difficult. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. There we go. I went a little bit over for good measures, but as you can see, the build below me has just turned completely invisible. I can walk all over, I can walk back onto it, and I can completely see the ground below me. You can see this little build health bar, but what we can do is go into our settings, go to HUD options, and turn off target info. When we do this, it doesn't show the build's health, and you can see it is completely clear. It just looks like I'm walking on thin air. And even though the build is invisible, I can still build off of it and it'll stay invisible. So it almost looks like this is connecting to this. And one of the cool things about making builds invisible like this is that you can also make builds invisible that are connecting to it. So you can just make a whole invisible pathway of builds. So I have this invisible pyramid, I have this invisible floor, and I can even come down here and make this wall invisible. 11, 12, 13. And there we go. I only went 13 seconds, but it still worked. Here we go. I have a floating wall right here. So right now I have an invisible pyramid or invisible cone. I have an invisible floor and I have an invisible wall. Unfortunately, you can't make stairs invisible because the macro is selecting the edit and confirming the edit that fast, as fast as you see that. To be able to do this consistently, editing the stair, that's pretty much impossible. And I destroyed that, and look, there's just a floating build now. And now this build is just chilling here floating. 15. There we go. If I wanted to, I could make this build float, and now I just have my own little floating platform over here. However, as soon as I do something like make another edit on it, then it resets it back so you can actually see the build again. As you've seen throughout this video, making builds invisible with macros is not hard whatsoever. Basically, you just have to tap the button over and over consistently for about 15 seconds and the builds go invisible. However, let's try to do it without using a macro. It really doesn't seem that complicated. All you have to do is stay consistent. However, once again, I don't play keyboard mouse, I play controller. So now I have my controller here. If you didn't know, I use the FPS Dominator Strike Pack, which basically just adds 2 paddles onto the back of my controller. So I edit with this paddle right here, it's my right paddle, select with my R2, and then I have confirmed the edit on. So all I really need are these 2 fingers, and let's see if we can stay consistent enough to be able to get this build to float. There we go, we got it. I even showed the controller hand cam, so you know I'm not using macros, I'm not using anything. We got the build to float just using our controller and our 2 fingers. There we go, okay. Alright, there we go. Floating builds, floating platforms. So basically what people have been doing is making these invisible builds to build these floating platforms, and then they'll have something like this connected to another build like this, and then they'll go and they'll just edit this a bunch and act like they're making the builds float, even though, as I showed you at the beginning of the video, if you do that, no matter how fast you try to reset it, the build will always break if it's disconnected. So technically this should be breaking, this should not work, but it does because we have this invisible build here. I think we have one final test, and that's to see if we can do this in a pub. We have done it in pubs, absolutely no macros used, just me on my controller. Now let's see if we can do it for the 2 time. And we have done it again. We are floating on builds in the middle of a public match. We can see right below us, we can see all around us. Now let's see if we can wait for someone to come up to us and see what their reaction is, see what they do. I don't think he's gonna try to kill us, is he? I think he's coming to check us out. He's just gonna check us out. Oh, he shot me out. Boo. Wow, didn't even go for my loot. What a bot. He didn't even want to just chill and vibe with me. But that's gonna go ahead and do it for this one. Please remember, if you did enjoy this video, don't forget to drop a like, subscribe if you are new. I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.